Good day, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. In today's episode, we're going to continue our coverage of the ongoing civil war inside of the former state of Ethiopia. Obviously, the fighting continues. We will first start on the southern frontal zone, which really takes place in the northern areas of the Amhara region and moving south from southern Tigray. But over the course of the last 7 days, there has been a series of rather significant engagements between the Tigrayan Defense Forces and forces of the Ethiopian Army and its Amhara paramilitary militia backed allies. The fighting has been reported as being incredibly intense, and I just want to kind of talk about how we have gotten to this point, how we have arrived at this point in terms of the battle that has unfolded in the vicinity that has taken place from Debre Tabor, west of Weldia, and then obviously south of Weldia, approaching the town of Dese. And right now, it would appear that a lot of the engagements that are taking place in the vicinity of Gashena and areas in the environments of Gashena, both south and west of that town. But it would appear that the Ethiopian army had come to the conclusion that it was suffering setback after setback after setback. The Tigrayan Defense Forces had continued to push onwards to Debre Tabor, and in some cases we were even hearing of forward echelon units of the TDF as moving very, very close to Tana Lake. And as we know, the Ethiopian army, the Amhara-backed militia units have been, while not conscripting, they have been accepting volunteers to enlarge their force structure. They took many, many casualties, and the force was really a broken force that left the Tigray region. And since then, they've been on a massive recruiting drive, recruiting thousands upon thousands upon thousands of untrained personnel that would then receive really rudimentary training. Basically, can you carry a rifle? Can you shoot a rifle? Yes or no? And it would sound that these forces were then deployed forward for operational capability. Now, these forces, which constituted a very, very high percentage of Ethiopian and Amhara forces that were deployed in the vicinity north of Dese and in the vicinity of Debre Tabor and other areas along the southern front. And the Ethiopian army was able to also utilize elements of the Republican Guard. They were also able to utilize elements of commando brigades that were deployed with this largely untrained force of semi-volunteers, volunteers that had been deployed to fight. And over the last 7 days, we have seen these forces come into play and attempt to advance in various areas along the southern operational front in terms of how the Tigray Defense Forces would see it. And obviously this would be more or less of a northern frontal zone for the Ethiopian army as well. But the attack commenced with really the goal, and again that attack was launched by the Ethiopian army to prevent the ongoing setbacks that were occurring, to put a stop loss to the loss after town, because you have to understand we were seeing at one point it went from we started in Korim, we went to Alamata, then Kobo, then proceeded south. We saw the fall of Weldia, and then obviously a push south to Mersa, and then now fighting as far as Haik, just outside of Dese. And the same as the Tigrayan Defense Forces pushed west, they obviously seized Lalibela, they seized Gashena, they seized Debre Zibit, they seized Nefes Micha. They pressed on to Debre Tabor and were approaching Tana Lake. And this is when this counter operation by the Ethiopian Army was started. And again, it was started by largely some relatively good units being supported by a quite a bit of personnel who just simply have not been trained, and this has led to the many days of battle we are now seeing in the vicinity of these areas on the southern front. And we can tell you that there has been significant losses of life and material on the part of the Ethiopian military as it has launched this attempted counteroffensive and really designed to push and control the town of Gashena, and then eventually make a move towards Lalibela, and then retaking control of Weldia via Wachali, Mercer, and then Weldia, and then quite possibly launching a two-prong attack in the vicinity of Weldia, coming north to south from the Dese region. And then obviously once Gashena was taken, the idea was to move in a northeasterly direction towards Weldia, and again engage the Tigrayan Defense Forces in the vicinity of Weldia, and then continue on. However, that did not come to fruition. The forces of the Ethiopian Army, the Amhara paramilitaries, and these really poorly trained volunteers that were really being used as cannon fodder have taken tremendous losses, and that operation has since stagnated. We're still trying to figure out if, in fact, what sort of progress was made in the vicinity of Gashena. It is possible that Ethiopian forces entered Gashena. It looks like, from the information that we have now, that Ethiopian forces, Amhara paramilitaries, have in fact been pushed out of Gashena. But in this engagement, it was really all or nothing, and unfortunately for the Ethiopian military and all these volunteers that were pressed into service, quite possibly before they were ready, suffered really catastrophic losses. And even if we take some of the reported losses that are being reported by the high command of the Tigrayan Defense Forces, even 30%, 50% reduction, these are still significant losses that have been taken by the Ethiopian Army in this operation to push the Tigrayan Defense Forces out of the northern and northeastern Amhara region. And it would appear that we are now starting to see the Tigrayan Defense Forces at least starting to push again in renewed offensive operations towards the town of Dese. And we are starting to see the Tigrayan Defense Forces take on almost a more conventional role in terms of the way they are prosecuting the war. We are starting to see the use of much more heavy weaponry, the training and the use of 122 millimeter field guns is being utilized quite a bit now. We're seeing more and more mortars being utilized. We're even seeing in some limited use tanks and armored fighting vehicles by the Tigrayan Defense Forces as it starts to launch counterattacks in different areas along this southern front. But again, just to surmise, it would appear that the Ethiopian Amhara militia offensive with the goal of pushing the Tigrayan Defense Forces out of the Amhara region, starting by seizing the vital road junction of Gashena, which would then give it the ability to press onwards towards Lalibela to the north, and then obviously press on towards Weldia, has failed. And again, along with that failure has occurred significant losses in the form of both equipment, and really the most significant loss is personnel. And the loss of that personnel in these engagements is going to trickle back to other Ethiopian units, to other Amhara paramilitary units that are currently going through the limited training regime that has been instituted by the Amhara region and the Ethiopian state. And that is going to have an effect on morale, and it's going to have an effect on any further operations as well. There are certain strategies that the Tigrayan Defense Forces are using that is becoming notorious for the Ethiopian military, for these Amhara militias, and that is creating a stigmatism around going to war against the Tigrayan Defense Forces. It's causing a sense of fear, and we'll see how that continues to progress, or if the Ethiopian state is able to get a handle on it and quite possibly reverse the tide at some point. But it would appear that the operation, this offensive operation by the Ethiopian Army, designed to really to stop this forward progression by the Tigrayan Defense Forces, what was initially successful in terms that it did stop the continued forward progression of the Tigrayan Defense Forces. But the problem is, by taking as many casualties and seeing the battlefield defeats that occurred by the Ethiopian military, we're now seeing a renewed push by the Tigrayan Defense Forces towards the town of Dese. And we'll continue to watch that and see how that sorts itself out. Farther to the north, into the Afar region, we continue to hear about limited offensive operations by the Tigrayan Defense Forces, centered on several areas such as Burhali in the western Afar region. Again, we do not believe these are significant operations designed to keep and hold territory for an extended period of time. But nevertheless, these are operations that are ongoing by the Tigrayan Defense Forces in the Afar region. And we are seeing infighting in other places between Somalis and Afars, and just really the destruction of the Ethiopian state is what we're witnessing as these varying ethnic groups start to turn on each other through the war that was again started by the Ethiopian state, which invaded the Tigray region. What's going on in the west and around the Eritrean border right now? Well, things are not completely quiet. There continues to be tit-for-tat operations in western Tigray. There continues to be the build-up and the shoring up of its border areas by the Eritrean military, led by the despotic regime of Isaias Afwerki. And we can continue to see the Tigrayan Defense Forces continue to conduct defensive measures in these areas to prevent any sort of possibility of an Eritrean advance into northern Tigray, or a possible renewed advance from western Tigray in an eastwardly direction by the Eritrean military. I would not suspect that the the Tigray Defense Forces would be ready to launch any sort of major operation into Western Tigray as of yet. I firmly believe that the issues in the south needed to be sorted out first before a second front is opened up with at least high intensity warfare. But that is the report for the day. I will monitor and continue to report as events warrant. Have a great day, everybody.